You're still watching Morning at NTV. I'm Arnold Sagawa. But many questions are going around how the economy is going to thrive, little on the banking and the finance space post this COVID-19 pandemic. Now, to help us understand the dynamics, at least when it comes to not only banking but also the mortgage space, we have the Housing Finance Bank Managing Director, Mr. Mugabe. Mr. Mugabe, many thanks for making time to speak to us.
Thank you, Arnold.
Just give me a sense of post-COVID-19. How excited should we be, or should we even be excited when it comes to the mortgage space?
Thank you, Arnold, and good morning, viewers. First, COVID-19 has taken the world by a storm. Something nobody expected, no one prepared for it. But here we are confronted with a pandemic that has far wide-reaching consequences and ramifications on many sectors of the economy. Many sectors of the economy, and not just the economy, on the entire environment, on our lifestyles, on our livelihoods, on society as a whole. So it's not something we should be excited about. We should be very concerned. And I can tell you that the impact of COVID-19 has actually had a ripple effect on the economy to great depth.
If we were to talk about restructure, because like you're saying, this has taken everyone by storm. Now, if you're an HSBC, if you're a Barclays, if you're Housing Finance, definitely what you had on the books in January 2020 is not...
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to definitely restructure. Give me a sense of where that leaves you, what policy restructuring you might be looking at post-May.
Absolutely, and Arnold, here you're very right. You know, here, and to give it context, let me go a little back and we understand this. We have a health crisis. To contain a health crisis, governments across the globe had to make different choices. Choices of preserving life or curtailing or restricting livelihoods, which were very difficult choices. So naturally and invariably, the decision to preserve life takes the upper hand. So with that in mind, a number of restrictions were put in place, largely containment measures. And these measures involved total lockdown. Total lockdown of many sectors of the society, of the economy. These had a ripple effect on various sectors of the economy. I'll give you, for instance, and I'll draw into the sectors that have been hit hard. We have tourism. With the lockdown of airspace, many of the entrepreneurs that had invested in the hotel industry and hospitality industry have been hit hard. Hotels are closed. With closure of hotels, we've had 12 massive layoffs. Now remember that investors and entrepreneurs that had invested in the hotel and hospitality industry had actually, some of them had mortgage financing. The employees that were in these industries also had loans. We know that Ugandans use loans to be able to do many other developmental projects, including housing.
But this is where it gets interesting, because on one end, I appreciate where you're coming from. Yes, there's a trickle-down effect, but I love that you're here wearing the cap of the banker.
Correct.
If I had a loan, if I had a mortgage to start up something that is in the tourism space, are you about to restructure this, given the fact that no one saw this coming?
And thank you very much. And because of this impact on the economy, we've had government through the central bank has come up with various relief options. And as a bank, if you come to housing finance, we're able to offer various relief options, including restructuring your facility. And that goes for as good as granting you a moratorium, a repayment holiday. Because when you take a facility in a bank, as you had earlier on asked, you're supposed to pay it back with principal and interest.
Yes.
Now we offer repayment holidays from 3 months up to 12 months, effective 1st April through the end of March 2021. We can give you a repayment holiday from either paying interest or you don't pay interest and principal for an agreed period of time. But that will depend on an appreciation, an understanding between you and us, the bank, in terms of how COVID impacted on you.
I love what the central bank, I love what Bank of Uganda said. They said this would be on a one-on-one
on a
basis.
case-by-case basis. Yeah, absolutely,
basis.
absolutely, on a case-by-case basis.
Not a lump sum.
And that's to really guide and give guidance on how this restructuring will be done. Because remember that ordinarily this would deny banks some form of liquidity. So we are saying that demonstrate what were cash flows before COVID, pre-COVID-19, and how has COVID-19 impacted on you to render you incapable to stop. How has the declining cash revenue, and that should be able to be, we should be able to see that from your cash flows, from the business, so and it's very evident.
Michael,
so you're able to see that actually a business entity, enterprise has been heavily impacted by the COVID-19 and premise on which a bank can then give you a holiday. You're able to deal with health first. Let's first preserve health and safety, and then we can worry about the declining revenue, the restructuring of business that can come later, which I think is a very good thing for us to rebound the economy.
I think it was 2 weeks ago. We had a conversation with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Francis Kamlager.
Yes.
And Francis alluded to something that's quite interesting. He kind of, I'm paraphrasing him here, and he alluded to the fact that the Mugaga of Uganda is someone who holds many land titles.
Yes.
And COVID-19 has kind of showed us that that's not enough.
Absolutely.
Give me a sense of, after all of this, do you get a sense that maybe Ugandans will have a different perception of what wealth is vis-a-vis what it was before? I have 15 land titles scattered across all the suburbs of Kampala.
Thank you very much, and I listened to Francis during that presentation. I must admit that there are many lessons to take away from COVID-19. If I can take a little back, do you realize that to preserve sustenance, human sustenance and mankind, there are three things. Number one is food. And that's why the president was very clear. Markets will remain open. Food. Number two is health. Again, very clear. Medics and healthcare facilities.
The dead don't eat.
Yes. And then health, and then shelter. So for me, number one is that we never prepared for this. Nobody saw this coming. But how about savings? A culture of savings. What lessons do we take away from this? If none of us anticipated this, if none of us saw this coming, I think it's high time that probably we banks and institutions in the financial played some role in educating our people to improve the culture of savings, so that we are more prepared for the uncertainties, the ambiguity and complexities that the future holds. That's number one. Number two is, for me, I'd want to draw you to shelter. You recognize the message was stay home. The control measures across the globe by various governments were stay home, social distancing, and washing hands. So they're staying at home. Home is shelter, is housing. I believe to preserve legacy and life, we should be thinking about shelter. And here we come in housing finance very strongly, given our strength and leadership in the provision of mortgaging finance for our customers and for Ugandans out there. That post-COVID, and by that I should hasten to add that Ugandans are very resilient people. They are very entrepreneurial, they are very resilient, they are very enthusiastic about their investments. So definitely Ugandans, and we've seen much, we shall definitely rebound.
Michael,
but post-COVID-19,
right,
we should be able to see a different set of, a different culture of savings. So that, because a different way of life in terms of how we go about.
I hear you there, yes. But Michael, my biggest issue is the fact that the premium, yes, the premium for Ugandan mortgage assets is over the roof. And definitely this is not something that you can address solely. The pricing for our assets here, mortgage-wise, is just exponential, as opposed to maybe what you would get even in the States. I mean, if you are to look at a plot in Kololo and you go to, let's say, Nevada or South Carolina, and you look at something that you could get there that comes with a green card, it's almost the same. So that leaves me wondering, policy-wise, how hard is it for you to do your job when you do have to compete with frontier markets, emerging markets that are arguably priced the same as your mortgages?
Yes. You raise a very interesting question, and for me, it's a question that is near and dear to us as a financial institution, as Housing Finance Bank, because you find that what we are dealing with is availability of affordable and decent housing. The bulk of the real estate investments, the bulk of the houses that are on the market are for the high end. And outside the reach of the bulk of many of Ugandans. What are we doing? As the financial institution, as the leading provider of mortgage finance, Housing Finance Bank, we have come up with engagements, not just with government, but with various developers, to try to bring to the market more affordable housing. Housing that's within the reach of many Ugandans. We also recognize, and this is interesting, Arnold, for you and for the benefit of our viewers, that many Ugandans build incrementally. Do you know that? Yes. They build one house, one room, and then next you add another room, add a sitting room, and it's pleasant, and we enjoy it, and people do it. It's within means. As a bank, we've come up with products and solutions whereby we're able to build with customers, we're able to partner together, and I invite viewers and customers out there approach the incremental building loans so that we are able to address shelter. We're able to demystify this issue of saying that mortgages or housing is for their end. Yes, pricing of mortgage has been about this is slowly but surely being dissected. And I can tell you at Housing Finance Bank, we've come up with solutions that address exactly that, so that we're able to have mortgages, and not just mortgage, shelter, brought to within reach and access of many Ugandans out there.
Growth has been revised from 6.3 to 3%. About 3%,
yes.
Which I think could even be worse.
Yes.
Where does this leave your balance sheet at the end of 2020? Does this worry you exponentially that there might not be a bonus coming? You get the bonus. No. I think primarily what we'd like is it is actually interesting. Uganda as a country has had one of the fastest growth rates of GDP, 5%, 6% projections, and a steady curve, not just by not just by the central bank, but various other stakeholders across the globe have actually ranked Uganda very high in terms of the growth of our GDP. With COVID-19, we've had significant challenges. We've had a complete revision of this growth of GDP and of our economy from 6 downwards 3%. That has many ramifications for many financial institutions. Yeah. It actually invariably means that we've got to review, because what it means that various stakeholders, the business community that had anticipated to do many things, will ultimately not be able to. Many entities actually have got to revise their strategic plans, their provision, their projections. Conversely, the banks must come forward to see how they tie in and blend, to see provide the support to the business community to be able to cover the growth. But can I tell you something, Arnold? Yeah. Within this very apparently bleak or gloomy picture, we have opportunities. Every dark cloud has silver lining, and I believe it is within those opportunities that are out there. If you look closer, they are there. That we'll be able to grow our balance sheet, to be able to tap into other avenues. For instance, I will tell you that with the supply chain disruptions,
following our import dependency to the Far East, China and all, like, we are going to have import substitution. Already we've seen our president encouraging local industries. We've seen some of these building materials now being manufactured here. So banks will come in to support entrepreneurs that are actually exploiting opportunities in these other alternative solutions and industries that will come up. So the immense opportunities are there if you look closely, and as a bank we are ready to partner with the various stakeholders and business community out there to be able to grow together.
Michael, allow me to just put a pause on this. We're going to return on this particular conversation. Many of the things that you're actually saying, I'll just be picking up on those. But just a small breather. For now, let's cross over to Stephen Bide, who is a resident reporter in the thick of things on the street, to give us a sense of what the milling situation is like, that posture that you do see the LDUs, well, distributing. Where does it come from? And who has that final say on all that milling and that business? Stephen, good to have you on the show.
Thank you for watching Morning at NTV. Good morning to you from wherever you're watching us from. This is Morning at NTV. Stephen Mbide is coming to you live from the city center. This is Naminembe Road that drives the people coming from either Hoima Road, Masaka Road and Lubaga Road coming towards the city center. And here, because of the lockdown, the city is still sparsely populated, not very much people, not so many people in the city center, and less of congestion for you who is having a sticker to drive through the city. Just be sure that there is absolutely no congestion for now. But one thing that is so key that you notice in the city, if you haven't been in Kampala for the past 3 weeks, is that you see KCCA, that is Kampala Capital City Authority, the engineering department is now getting down on just to beautify the city. Now what they are doing is to plant some trees along the stretch of this non-motorized transport corridor that stretches from Bakuli traffic lights through the Natural Blue Room and towards the city center, also going towards the other side of the Jesco building that is just looking into the Nachivubo road. That is the road that goes from Owino side connecting towards the Chiseka side. Also, when you look around, very many shops are still closed because of the lockdown, and you will also be seeing that some people are moving on the foot heading towards the city. But the president was saying the other day that if the security officials should stop some of these people who are on the foot coming to the city to ask them where they are going. But you'll be surprised that you see many shops within the city are closed, but there are so many people walking from the other side of Bakuli coming towards the city. And when they reach this corner of the Blue Room, many of them turn towards the Chisenyi side, where you find the maize flour milling factories. You find there the Owino market and other small businesses there. This is what is happening in the city for now. I'll be taking you back to studio because Arnold Segawa is there and will be giving you much more information here.
Stephen, many thanks for that update. Many questions around the closed shops, but people are walking on the streets. Michael, I saw you having a good laugh there. You mentioned something interesting, the president encouraging import substitution, silver lining, just before we crossed over to Stephen. And I hear you here. The problem is intra-Africa trade is hovering between 15 to 17%. Ourselves, just the other day, Honorable Amelia Chambade in our press conference alluded to the fact that we still import salt. Yes. Basic salt. Now, with all the hiccups at the borders,
closure.
We import salt. This is appalling. You know, to think that we have Katwe there, and surely. So I see where you're coming from. But this would take years of value addition spectrums added layer after layer. And where does this leave a bank? If someone walked up to your bank and said, you know what, I want to do some value addition, do you hear them out? Where do you even start?
Absolutely. And yes, we are leaders in the provision of mortgage financing. So our specialty is mortgage, but we're also a consumer and business bank. We're actually a fully fledged commercial bank. so that we're able to partner with the business community out there.
Yeah.
Clearly, as an indigenous institution, and that's what I say with a lot of humility, but also with a lot of happiness, that we don't have to fit things. No, we have tailor-made solutions for our customers. Speak to us, and our expert of relationship managers, the business heads of business functions will be able to really make solutions, custom-made products and solutions that will be able to address the emerging needs of Ugandans, especially post-COVID. And like I told you, with our entrepreneurial spirit in Uganda, definitely there's quite a lot out there for us to hijack, and as an institution, we're ready to partner with the business segment and community to be able to exploit and support the business opportunities out there that I think our entrepreneur Ugandans are ready to go for. And it's already being seen in some of these sectors. Construction, you've seen manufacture of tiles. In various sectors of the economy, you're finding a lot is beginning to happen here in Uganda. And now with this restriction of movement, I think we are thinking twice about this.
Michael, one thing that I've been worried about the moment the pandemic actually set foot in the country was inflation. Because you're imposing a lockdown, which, like you said, is much needed. You know, health first. After a lockdown, people are not going to the farms, and if you look at our consumer price index, it is predominantly dominated by food items.
Yes.
Now, ultimately, this is going to trickle into inflation.
Yes.
Now, how worried are you as a mortgage bank, as a commercial institution, about inflation going forward, maybe 3 months? Are you actually pricing this into the risk of the bank going forward?
Yes, but current projections from Bank of Uganda, and I think I don't speak for Bank of Uganda, who have
all the data in the world.
Yes, and not only that, and even the mandate and function for control of
price
inflation.
stability. Yes,
but the projections that they expect inflation to remain. First of all, inflation has been in the lows of 2.5%, 3%. So it has been contained very, very well for the last several years. Uganda and the central bank, credit to them, have managed inflation very well. It is projected that even if it will slightly rise, it will still remain under the inflationary target of 5%. So it's not something that's going to feature very prominently in our
projections. Right. Your final remarks, Mr. Mugabe?
Yes. First of all, it is to say that number one is that we need to be addressing our savings culture, and we are here for those that so that we don't have another scenario of this nature, since we didn't prepare for this. But importantly for our customers, we have various relief options for our customers in terms of restructuring, in terms of moratoriums and repayment holidays. So we invite them to approach our dedicated team of relationship managers. Our contact center is fully open. Our branch managers are well tuned to answer customers' issues. So we invite our viewers and customers out there to approach us so that we're able to really ease the burden, to allow them manage these declining revenue and challenges and manage safety. Then we can be able to look at the mortgage installments and repayments later, much later. And additionally, there are many Ugandans out there that have seized opportunities out there within this COVID and post-COVID. Yeah. We're happy to work with Ugandans, support them to explore these opportunities. And then lastly, I urge all Ugandans to stay safe and adhere to the government standard operating procedures against this pandemic, so that we can beat this pandemic and build a great future, a great Uganda together.
Definitely. Mr. Mugabe, many thanks for making time to speak to us. Maybe the other thing is to wash our hands.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Many thanks for that. Mr. Michael Mugabe there speaking to us is the Managing Director for Housing Finance Bank. If you do happen to hold a mortgage with them, maybe you need to head over there and ask for the big man and talk about restructuring. Let's take a quick break. More Morning at 10 TV after this.